Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Log Talk with Pert Near Outdoors. This is your host Billy, and I think we're on to episode 104 at this point. And this one is going to be a fun one. It's going to be a little bit different. We did a swap cast, I feel like there's a term that's escaping me, but where you do a podcast with another podcaster and then you split it up and share it to try to help each other out to get some new listeners to each other's podcast. So this one is going to be with Dan Greco. Dan is a fellow Buffalonian. He is a pretty interesting character, someone who I've gotten to know through my brother-in-law. And when I had heard that Dan was starting a podcast, he put up on his social media that he was starting one and kind of gave a little taste of what it was going to be all about. And I think he's got an awesome idea, an awesome platform with what he's doing. So it's not hunting-based. Dan is not a hunter. He doesn't have really any background of hunting in his life. What he's doing with the podcast is he's really just exploring what makes people tick and what their passions are. So the name of his podcast is Most Alive Podcast, and that's exactly what it is. He's trying to find out exactly what it is that makes people happy, makes them feel alive, makes them get up every day and do what they do. And he's really put together, I think he's on to 9 episodes or 10 episodes now. And each one of them is fascinating, hearing stories about people and how they got into whether it's their actual career, their 9 to 5, or if it's their side hustle or just their hobbies that they are all into. Very fascinating to hear people's journeys and stories. So I really love what Dan's doing. I encourage you to head over and check him out, and especially with this one, because the part that I'm posting right now is actually part 2. So it would be the second hour of our discussion. Which is mainly targeted to him, is kind of where the discussion was targeted at. The first half was him kind of picking my brain on why hunting and why I feel so passionately about it. So head over to his podcast. He posted it on Sunday. That would be the 23rd. He posted up the first half, and today being the 24th of May is when I'm posting this up. So head over, check his out first before you listen to this. Listen to that half. And then come back around. There's a few kind of like jokes and things that come back around from the first hour that won't make sense unless you listen to the first. So head over, check that out, give him a subscribe, check out his stuff on social media. He's just getting going, and really excited to see what he does with this, as he really wants to push and try to make this more than just a side hustle. So good on you, Dan, and pretty cool from the perspective when we recorded this podcast. We actually we talked about getting him out turkey hunting, and this Friday we recorded the podcast like a week and a half ago, and this Friday I did actually get him out for a hunt over at the farm. We just went out for a couple hours, sat from 5 till 7, and man, it was just such a cool. I was hoping to God we had good luck there 2 weeks ago, and Brian and I both shot longbeards off the farm, so I wasn't quite sure. I knew we still had the 3 jakes running around. And I'm not quite sure exactly who it was that we were listening to and who we saw as far as a gobbler. I don't think it was a jake. It was a single bird by itself, and it had a pretty complete gobble. But we never got to see him strut. And when we did see him, he was too far away to tell without my binoculars exactly what he had for a beard on him. But he gave us a little bit of a show. We watched him fly down, land out in the field, and then kind of come across in front of us at probably 70, 80 yards. And it was pretty cool. And him and I haven't talked since, but I'm interested to hear what his perspective was on that experience. I kind of pumped it up as far as being out in the woods and watching everything wake up and hearing the birds. And I know the one comment he made to me is he couldn't believe how many birds there were chirping and making noise, at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. And they were especially loud. And then you add the gobbles on top of it. It was a pretty awesome experience. So appreciate you, Dan, coming out with me and checking it out. I hope we I showed you a good adventure there, even if it was just a couple hours. And I sent him home with some venison, and he had already cooked it up a couple hours after I sent him with it. So he hopefully he's feeding him. We know he's feeding him, but I hope that maybe he gets a little interest to sniff around this hunting thing a little bit more. So, all right, that's enough on that. Head over, check out the first half, then enjoy this discussion if you may. Follow up from the weekend. Danny Boy and I went down to the event that the Upper Genesee River branch of the National Deer Association. They put on an awesome event yesterday. It was their first event. We did a live podcast there. I think we sat down with 4 or 5 individuals, had some short, brief conversations. So we'll be posting that podcast up probably next week or maybe the week after, just however it flows. But met some awesome people. They did just an incredible job putting that together. Sean Burdick and his team down there, it was their first event. And I guess he's got some experience with other organizations throwing big banquets and events like that, but you would never know that it was the first that group had done. It was well done, had an archery shoot, lots of raffles and prizes. The guys from the Huntworks had a box blind that they were raffling off. So I saw the video that they posted on the page there on their chapter page yesterday and got to see the individual that won that. I was hoping that I was going to be the lucky one, but not so much. But they did a fantastic job, and bravo to them. And thanks for allowing us to set up a tent and hang out and spread the word on the podcast as well. Let's see what else. Just a reminder: use the links that we have in our link tree on Instagram and Facebook if you're going to do any shopping and would like to help support the podcast financially. The best way for you to do that right now is to use those links. So if you click on that link in our Instagram bio or on our Facebook bio, it's over on the left or right-hand side of the screen on Facebook. Just click on that, take you to a page, and then you can actually just click on the links of the stores you want to shop at. Cabela's, Camel Fire, Sportsman's Warehouse, Black Ovis, to name a few, are some of the more popular stores that people seem to be using. So help us out. We greatly appreciate it. And if you have any questions on how that works, just shoot us a DM and I'll straighten you out. And we also have some stuff for sale up on our website, pertneeroutdoors.com. If you use promo code podcast, I created that today. If you use if you use promo code podcast, it'll get you 10% off. I'm going to use that at promo on here from here on out to try to track exactly where the promotional code came from to see if it's people that are listening to the podcast or what it is. But right now we've got some stickers up there. We've got some turkey calls from Bushwhacker. So I'm probably going to, now that we're winding down on season, I'll probably discount those. So check those out, and you could use a discount code on top of the discount that I'll put on there to get you some calls so that you've got some stuff to either finish out the season or get ready for next year. And then we've also got some T-shirts on there from the Shed Fest. I got a couple extra for each size. So if you did not get in and you'd like a T-shirt, I've had rave reviews on the shirt. They're very comfortable, ring spun kind of soft shirt. Cotton poly blend. It's a very nice shirt, and I've had some great feedback there. So those are currently $15 over on the website. So head over there and grab you yours before they are gone, because once they're gone, they're gone. So that, I believe, is all I have. I'm sure there's more, but you don't care. So have a great week. I appreciate you listening. Thank you so much, and keep feeding them.
Hello.
Yeah, that's your
Yeah.
name.
Squirrels got me.
Big Jim.
Yeah.
Really, 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 really cold and fun.
Cold and fun.
Cold and fun.
That's good that you think that of it, because that's what deer hunting typically is cold and fun.
Yesterday morning, I'm glassing up on the pass and I see these deer moving, and I'm like, ooh, there's deer moving. All of a sudden, I just see this person just head down, just hauling ass, wearing shorts and a t-shirt with a pack on. And I'm like, is that Tard? My dad always talks about floating through the woods like the autumn breeze.
So Robert's
when you're
the
275
ghost,
pounds, I don't know how you do that, but
the Freightliner. It's just like a creeper. You're just kind of up in the corner watching what's going on down there.
yeah.
You know,
He's like,
he's up there slapping it, pissing all over everything.
is it warm yet?
How did you know the name of the actor?
That's right. I know.
Why'd you say his name?
Hervé Villechaize. Remember this?
You know what pertinier means.
If you know what pertinier means and you live in America, you're a redneck too.
Welcome to the Log Talk Podcast, brought to you by Pertinier Outdoors. If I'm being honest, I actually had to go upstairs and tell Sarah what you did, because that was so embarrassing. Unmute yourself, you rookie.
Oy vey.
Yeah, if I'm being honest, I deserve that. I don't know why I just shared that with as many people as I just did. But hey,
Hey, it's out there now.
it's me, man. You know, you're
Forever.
gonna just learn the real me, the scars from the tree stand endeavor, and everything else.
From the tree blind or the tree fort to
Yeah.
wherever we go.
No,
So
listen, I'd build the hell out of a tree fort. That sounds fun.
I loved tree forts as a kid. My dad never actually built us one, but my brother and I would steal. This is one you'll like because you've met my dad. You spent time with him in the
Oh yeah,
in the Green
great
River.
man.
They bought a house when we were kids, or before my brother. Maybe it was when I was first born. That they planned on like being a 5-year house. It ended up being a 20-year house. So my parents, my dad was constantly renovating, and he would have like trim out that he'd be like painting or staining. And my brother and I, one day, we wanted to build a tree fort or a tree stand in the little patch of woods next to the house. So we took a whole bunch of nails, and my dad's hammers, and took his stained trim that he had all prepared to put on the windows, and went out and started we nailed it. We built a tree fort out of the stained trim that we had like he came home that day. He was so pissed. And he's like, where's all my tools and where's my wood? It's like, it's out there. We just left his stuff laying in the dirt, and there's like 20 nails in the tree with each freaking piece of wood because they're like finished nails trying to use to climb the tree. Oh, God.
That's perfect.
Kids,
hey, we're all stupid in different ways sometimes. You know?
That's when I felt most alive, was when I was hammering my dad's trim pieces into the oak tree and then the tree next to the house.
I'm glad you're here to share it, Bill.
Yep. Well, we're gonna pivot to the Dan Greco show, the most alive interview here,
baby.
So we I feel like we went an inch deep and a mile wide on me. I got a million things that I'd like to dig further into there, but I want to dig at you a little bit.
All right.
You start, I guess, kind of give us a little bit of a like who you are, and then I kind of want to go into like why you started your podcast and kind of what that journey's been like to start, because you kind of got into it a little bit with your brother, and I thought it was fascinating that this is kind of where you found something to put your energy towards.
Okay. Yeah, who you are. That's a tough one, man. Yeah, I don't know. I'm a guy born and raised in Western New York. Like you alluded to, I moved to Denver for a bit to try to see something new, do something different with life. And that kind of seems to be a recurring theme for me, that I end up bored or kind of yearning for something more to do. So I work at a bank. Things are going pretty well there, but I tend to get these grandiose ideas of what my life should be, what I want to do with it. And, I played baseball growing up for a time. I poured myself into that. That's kind of what you're alluding to. And playing with guys like Rob, who you mentioned, Don, who you mentioned, my brother, they were so into it and loved it so much that it was tough not to get involved to that level and pour myself into it at the time. So that was one of the big kind of peaks of my life where I had something to commit to. But like we talked about in the beginning, that comes to an end, right? Sports, it's temporary. So when it ended, I didn't know what to do. That's when I bounced to Denver at some point in there. And then I started just trying stuff that I felt like I'd always wanted to do, Denver being one. Tried stand-up comedy another time. Did a few open mic nights. That was a blast, but also...
How did that go?
Yeah, that was... that was something. That was like my deep down like dream all through middle and high school, was like, if I could do one thing, I would do that, but I'll never do it. And then I ended up doing it. It went well. I got some laughs, but I got laughs in like a open mic club in Buffalo where there were 12 people and 8 of them were the other open mic people and 4 of them were my friends. So,
hey, laughs are laughs. Yeah. I'll take them however I get them.
It was a blast. But I felt like I wanted to try to make it big, and I felt like that wasn't the way to do it, but it was a first step. And then after a few times, it kind of, it stopped feeling any kind of fun for me, even though it was just a few short times. And I was like, people are laughing, but I'm not enjoying this. I'm not feeling like, you're not laughing with people. They're kind of in this darkness, So I just stopped doing that cold turkey. And then I was like, all right, what's next? I've chased that dream. I've chased the Denver dream. I might have that order backwards, but just kind of bounced around doing some stuff and didn't really find it. You can kind of skip over some details, but eventually put some roots down. Like I said, did the bank thing. I did get a bit into that job, but most recently I was like, I want something like that. I want something to do that I feel good about. I feel like is me, and I feel like I want to put a lot of energy into, like you said. And started reflecting, what is that? What is the stuff I like doing? I really like to learn, like I talked about. I love this conversation with you. Just I didn't know this stuff, and now I know a little bit more about it. And now I'm curious to do more. Like I really do want to go out with you and see how that goes. And that's just one example. Had a conversation with somebody the other day that the time warp of like recording and posting is weird. We're having this conversation. It's not posted. I think by the time this gets out there, it will be posted. But she's a woman from work who wrote a blog about this music scene that when she was younger, she fell in with, and it really gave her a place to belong as a young girl when she didn't feel like she had that with the type of music she liked to listen to, like punk music. I'm like, I don't know a damn thing about that. So that's awesome. So let me learn that. And then other people, it's other things. Let me learn that. Let me learn that. So I had this idea, not knowing the specifics, that it would be you, that it would be her, but just that there's these parts of the world out there I don't know, and I want to know them. And I like to change a lot, as we've seen. So this is kind of a perfect avenue for me to keep changing it up and learning something new and do something different. And I think the piece that sets it off is like I could just Google stuff or read a book, and that's cool too. You know, there's good learning there, but to get it from somebody who, like you said, it's your life, it's your lifestyle. For her, I could tell she was just rippling about it. To connect to that and get it translated to you that way just seemed like a really fun idea. So yeah, I had enough support and people in my life who were like, you come up with ideas a lot and you just talk about them and then don't do them. Like, this is a great idea, you should do it. And I'm like, it's stupid. All right, I'll do it. Like, stop telling myself it's stupid and just do it. And I've been doing it, and who knows where it's going to go, but here we are. I'm having a blast and loving it.
Now, were you always like, were you a big podcast listener? Is that something that you were avid about and people knew that, and that's kind of why they were recommending it for you? Or
so I started listening probably a couple of years ago to podcasts, and then really did get into them. I had a longish commute at that time, and it was like, why am I just driving to work listening to the local stupid FM radio, you know, where they're talking about celebrity news and stuff? Like, let's make this time useful. So I found some podcasts that talked about stuff I thought was useful, and I got into it that way. So I think the podcast idea itself was mine, and then the people around me were like, yeah, that's good, just do it, you know. So I would say that's kind of how it came about as a podcast.
Yeah, because it seems to me like podcasts have been around for a while, but it seems like they're really starting to catch on now. And I think especially in the last year with the pandemic, a lot of people were looking for something to do, and they're like, oh, this podcast thing is a thing you can do. But I was curious. That was a question I wanted to ask you, was like why a podcast? But then I was also curious if you had any like people who were like influences to you, like what, even if it's not a podcast platform, like a radio show or something where you've like really like listened back. Cause if you did stand-up comedy, I assume you're into comedy. I'm just like curious, cause the comedy scene was kind of one of the first that went on to the podcast realm. And, I'm a massive comedy fan. So I'm just curious kind of who your influences are there.
Yeah, that's a great question. I haven't really thought about it. Again, the podcast world. Have you ever heard of the intellectual dark web?
I've heard of that thing, but is that a podcast?
Well, so the dark web is a not so good
yeah.
thing.
Right.
Yeah. Then the intellectual dark web is like a sarcastic coined term that it's these, I don't know how you'd even classify them, thinkers, kind of like in the Joe Rogan sphere.
Yeah.
But whereas Joe Rogan's a guy who has connected with a lot of these people, these are, I don't know, psychologists or biologists, mathematicians, like thinkers.
Like name a person.
Like Eric Weinstein, Jordan Peterson, Sam Harris.
Yep.
Okay.
Love
so I started listening to oh, good. Yeah. So that's apparently what they called themselves jokingly once. But yeah, it just was like rational stuff. Sometimes right, sometimes left, which is my thing. Like, let's not be in a box here.
In the middle.
And and let's have a justification for what we're talking about. Let's respectfully talk with people we disagree with. And I just love listening to those conversations and like learning, like beyond just like, okay, good, they're not just fighting all the time and it's just cheap entertainment. There were lessons there. There was I don't know, it made me want to live my life more intentionally that way. So that was one big one. There was something else you touched on. Oh, so this is a weird one. Anthony Bourdain. I've never actually watched his show, but from the distance I know it of, it's like traveling around, food and passion. Yeah, like that's how that dude explored the world. And then he had a tragic end, and I don't know what to make of that. But again, I don't know the story intimately, but the early parts at least seem cool to me. And then comedy wise, it's interesting that you tie that. I wouldn't think that that's tied, but like in the comedy realm, I love Dave Chappelle. I love Brian Regan, who's a little more kind of just clean cut, straightforward. But I also love like Robin Williams. And I've said before, like I don't think Robin Williams' material was that funny, but I think Robin Williams himself is one of the most entertaining people in the world. Like he's just got such a range. He's doing Shakespeare, and then he's just making a fool of himself, and then he's like playing that role in Good Will Hunting, and it's just the Aladdin genie. Like the guy just does everything.
Right.
And I like that concept of just living to the fullest in such a variety of ways that I've always kind of been drawn to Robin Williams and people like him. So I don't know if that answers it, but that's how I would answer it.
Yeah, it does. That's like this discussion right here is exactly what I envisioned. Not exactly what I envisioned. Like I knew our podcast would be like a hunting podcast, but like it's going deeper, and I'm very much like you, where like I'm very curious about that stuff. Like I want to know more. I want to hear people's perspectives on things. And sorry, my Sarah. Look, I was in a deep thought. Sarah's looking for the cat.
That's not allowed in that house.
No. But I would did you ever listen to Opie and Anthony at all back in the day when they were on FM radio?
No.
No. Do you even know who they are?
I've heard the term a lot, or I've heard their names a lot, but I don't know who they are.
Yeah, I mean they were like so formative in like my humor and I feel like my personality.
Yeah.
Because they were on FM radio when I was growing up, and I'd listen to them when I was mowing, when I was working for the landscaper and cutting grass.
Okay.
And like I feel like so much of like all the comedians that I now follow were on their show when they were first getting started with, Rogan, and like now like Chris DiStefano is starting to develop in, like he was first getting on their show. I remember that probably back before Opie and Anthony broke up. But like I was like, that's where my origin comes from. I never talked about that, but like their humor, and like Jim Norton.
Yeah.
Like I think Jim Norton's freaking hilarious. And surprisingly, Sarah and I have gone to see him multiple times live. And I can't believe that Sarah thinks that like she loves his humor. And I think it's like her closeted thing. Like if her mother knew that she was laughing at those sort of jokes, she'd probably roll over and wouldn't be able to sleep.
Oh, good. You're letting it all out right now.
Yeah. Nobody's going to listen. It's just you and I talking. But
perfect.
But like it's that sort of stuff. So you did answer my question. I was just curious, like who your influences were on that perspective of things.
Yeah. You want to hear a ridiculous one that's like an eye roll, but I feel like I saw shortly before I started, and I kind of hated it, but liked the concept and just wished it were somebody different. And maybe that's not fair. Maybe there's no need for that. But I feel like Cardi B is launching a TV show where she goes around the world and like milks goats and does things she's never done. And it's like supposed to be hilarious.
She's never milked a goat. Yeah.
I'm not answering that one.
No, you should.
But yeah. But anyways, I'm like, actually that was what I wanted it to be, or that was like my first vision, and I think directly because of the Cardi B thing, but who knows, maybe. I wanted it to be like, hey, teach me something like hands-on, and then the podcast just seemed more doable as a first step. But I would love to, if I had a camera crew, Bill, and a budget, we would do that whole thing too. So maybe next,
Right. Yeah. Imagine having 2 kids, that'll dice things up a little bit.
Oh yeah.
And that's so you are like, for any ladies out there, are you a single man? You
single as it gets.
Oh man. What a life. 2020.
If you want to learn why.
Wonderful as a single individual.
Oh yeah. I'm spoiled rotten. Like it just watching the pandemic, and I think we've all probably talked about this enough that we know that there's the real sad part, and we can just put that to the side for a minute and just have a little fun for a second. Like just watching people struggle with the kids and the work from home, and like, hey, how are you holding up? And I'm like, I'm holding up fine, man. Okay, like I respect the hell out of people who don't have it like I have it because I know how easy I have it.
Yeah.
You know, it's and then on a somewhat deeper note, I've tried to take advantage of that, and I think a lot of people have. We touched on this a bit too, of like, all right, well, I got to do something, and now I don't have that FOMO of oh, I should be going out with friends. I should be like, there's nowhere to go out, so you just look inward, and you just start to really figure out what it is you love and want to do, and
Yeah.
you know, taking advantage of that.
Yeah, I mean, this is hopefully a once in a lifetime opportunity for all of us to do that, you know, to take a step back. And I think everybody in a different way has recognized what's important. Either you needed to find what was important, or you recognize what was around you and what was important over this last year, you know. And for me, it's family. You know, that's a more important thing right now that I need to focus on and be fully engaged with. But you know, for you, you know, it seems like it's you kind of trying to really buckle down and find your purpose. And like that was the next thing I had written down was purpose. That's been a big theme of all of the people you've had on your podcast, but it's also seems like a big thing with you, like trying to find like what's that purpose for Dan Greco.
Yeah. Well, and that's been like some of the ups and downs I talked about. That's probably been my core struggle since since it hit me that we die in like 7th grade, and I had a breakdown and like went into my parents' bedroom and was like a wreck. It's like, what happens? And they're like, well, you know, we believe in God and heaven, and like that didn't work for me at the time, and kind of truthfully still doesn't.
Right.
So then
Same
it's like,
here.
crap. So what's next? I believe it's Nietzsche. You know, the philosopher Nietzsche.
Mm-mm.
I might not be saying it right, but he, in his philosophy, proclaimed that God is dead, and what he meant was, like, society as a whole is kind of moving away from religion, which used to be the guiding light. And you know, I'm no apologist for religion, where I think it's just perfect A to Z, but it gave people a purpose that when you die, you go to heaven, and everything's going to be okay after that.
Yeah.
You take that away, and now we're all left to our own devices to figure out what the hell it is that's worth living for. And that's a hard question to answer. And that was his point, is like, if people don't figure this out, good luck. And I'm like, I needed a little more luck. So
yeah,
I haven't found it. I've been working pretty hard at trying to find it. And, you know, I've had some help from some good resources that kind of pointed to, maybe don't think of it that way. Maybe think of it as, what are you curious about? What are you interested in? And just follow that and see where it goes. And I think, again, this podcast seems to be the purest, fullest form of that. As like, I don't know, I'm curious about any of these things, and I'll just follow any one of them. And if I just keep putting those in front of myself, you know, maybe I can distract myself from not having a purpose all the way through.
Well, yeah, and 100%. I mean, it's just, I think that the whole religion thing is extremely interesting, but I think that religion, and you can answer this from your perspective, but for me, and I remember saying this to my parents, like when I started to get to about that age, like you're talking about, and even probably later, like getting into high school and going off to college and like starting to understand like people and relationships and things like that. And I'm sitting in church and I'm looking around and I'm like, oh, well, we know the dirt on that person and he's a horrible person. He's stealing from people. Oh, and this person's cheating on their wife, but they're all this perfect, holy person here in church. And like, that made me step back and just think about things. It's like, I'm the only one that can control my destiny, you know, and I'm the only one that can make an impact on myself and my community, my family, my circle. And I feel like that's a more powerful place to be in than relying on something else that you can't tangibly touch and see the results of. And I don't mean to offend anybody who's religious. That's not at all my point to that statement. But
sure,
I think that for me, like looking at society right now and everything that's going on, I've been soul searching over the last year because I'm hurt with seeing everything that's going on. Like I'm emotionally bothered by seeing everything we see on the nightly news, like across the world. It's devastating. And how people can, you know, stick their flag in the ground on one side or the other because of essentially it's a religious, like that's what religions become, is are you left or are you right in our country. And it's disgusting because at the end of the day, like we have one life, we have one planet, we have one, like we're all the same, we're all human beings. And if we don't start like recognizing that and going back to my friend Todd, like we had a discussion similar to this, and it's like, where do you even start with a discussion where there's somebody that looks at things totally different than you? You start with
Yeah.
values. Like what are Dan Greco's values? Before you get
Mm-hmm.
into how I feel about this or how I feel about that, it's like your values are the number one thing, because from there we can probably relate to a lot of things based on our values as a person. And that's more important than anything, I think. But
Yeah, I'm going to say amen to that.
yeah.
And pun intended, but that's exactly how I feel. And I've had this conversation. So my grandma on the Italian side, matriarch of the family, we love her to death. She's, religious as it gets. And I love her. I love her for that. I love that about like that. She's got a thing that she believes in, it's not a, like you said a minute ago, it's not an animosity thing. It's not anything against those people. It just doesn't work for me that way. But when we've talked about it, it's like, we all have these different beliefs, but I think underneath them all, maybe it's those values. I think there are values that are common threads across most, if not all of them. And it's like, wouldn't it be such a better world if we found what those common threads are and made that our guiding light and connected over those things? And then sure, we're going to have our differences, but like, why is that got to be where we start and what we focus on and all we hammer at each other? It's crazy.
Yeah.
And it drives us crazy. And yeah, that devastation thing, like you said, I've really struggled with that through this. I don't know, the last few years, really. I think, especially the last year, but it's been the last few. It just, you want to stay educated, but then you got to worry about your mental health, and you try to figure out where that boundary gets drawn for yourself, and it's tough. It's been tough for me.
Yeah. And I don't know, like for you with work, but for me with work, I was telling Sarah this the other day. So I work with school districts, and I'm an outside salesperson. So I travel to school districts in the Finger Lakes region, and I am basically a counselor, a psychologist. I'm everybody's freaking doctor, because I stop in once a month to check on everybody and make sure that they're all good. Do they need anything? Do I need to coach you anything? And it ends up turning into an hour and a half, 2 hour long conversation. We talk about product for a half hour, if that, and then it goes right straight to everything that's going on. And people everybody's just emotionally exhausted. And and it's sad, and I see, like, I have an awesome job. I have freedom, I have flexibility in my schedule, but seeing people that are like trapped in a system with their jobs where they don't have the resources, they don't have people, and they don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. And like the exhaustion and the wear and tear on people from this last year is freaking crazy. But if you can find, like the people that seem the happiest right now are the people that find a way to find that hobby or that passion outside of whatever your 9 to 5 is, and just pour yourself into it. And, you're starting to do that with the podcast. I think it's great because you're expanding your horizons. You're meeting new people. You're talking about different things. And I think it really, who knows what it could lead to for you personally,
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that I had to. Like, I had to find something good that I cared about, that I could move in a good direction with. And yeah, I almost feel like it's been said too many times, but I at the same time don't feel like you can say it too many times. Like, people trying to find this stuff, if it was COVID that led to it, so be it. Like, I think that's just such a good thing for society. And there's that other notion, like when you're faced with adversity, sometimes you come out stronger. The light comes from the dark. Like, I just hope that we're getting to a critical mass with all this political nonsense. Like you said, most people you talk to, right, are just exhausted and want something better.
It's 99%. I can think of one person in my circles that I'm like, I don't want to talk to you anymore.
Yeah, right. We'll leave that. But then it's like, okay, if that's the ratio, which it feels like it is, how is that tiny fraction still driving the country? And then, you get into these rabbit holes from there. But like, I just hope we're getting to a point that it doesn't have to get much worse before it can start getting better. I think in some small ways. And like you said, on an individual basis for you, what is it that you can do? Right. I think the more people realize that and are taking those actions, maybe that's the way forward. I don't know.
Yeah. And I think that's where, in the first half of this, we were talking primarily about my stuff. And like, I think that's why I've just become like rabidly passionate about this, like, especially R3, like this past year had in my immediate circle, it might've been three, but it was definitely two, Jeff and, AJ's buddy, Dan, two brand new hunters. And it's like, we're like pouring ourselves into those people to like try to get them to the level that we're at with the passion for it, and I think
Mm-hmm.
it's like finding that thing because I heard somebody say this on a podcast the other day and it just stuck with me that it was actually a comedian and he was just saying like I had to stop looking at the big picture and start focusing on the small world that I live in my town or my
Yeah.
city or my hobby like I have. But I see it as a community. I see upstate New York,
Mm-hmm.
New York State in general, the people that I'm talking to every day, like I'm trying to help cultivate the passion. If people don't have it or are curious about it, like here's what it can be, here's what it looks like. And it doesn't have to cost a lot. It doesn't have to be anything. You could feel really good about going out and volunteering your time. If you don't have the money, go volunteer your time, 5 hours,
Yeah.
a year, whatever, whether it's your local fire department or, whether it's with a conservation organization, a trail, Hunters Creek over here by my house. Like there's people that they have literally their passion is working on the trails and helping make it better for other people that like to enjoy that same place. And like those people seem to be the happiest people out there because they are just like everything is just noise, it's like right here.
Yeah.
And it goes back to that, like you realizing that at some point we're all going to die. It's like I've gone through those waves and you probably have too, where it's like, I got to focus on retirement, And I'm still focused on retirement, but it's like, you talk to a retirement guy and he's going to tell you, like, you gotta be saving X. It's like, it's my buddy Cam, and I'm probably going to get him on here for a similar, just kind of like a BS sesh like you and I are having, but he's been
Yeah.
doing my stuff for probably 10 years now. And I told him from the start, I said, I'm not going to, we're only here once. I'm not going to, finance my life away. So I'm strapped to the pennies every month because I'm trying to save for this hopeful retirement that I may have someday. It's like, I'm going to live this life at 100. And that's how I try to approach it every day. And that's the place to be, I think.
I'm fully on board with that. It strikes me as so strange, this old model that, and like I try not to have blind spots to it, but whatever. It strikes me as so strange that you would work from like 20 to 65 so that you could then live from 65 till whenever else and enjoy it. And it's like, hold on. And I've kind of gotten into some interesting discussions with my parents because they're a different generation. And that's kind of what they did so that they could provide and so that, that was a lot of good things for them. And I think they hear, me as millennial, just, oh, I just want to have fun all the time. And it's like, no, it's not just like I want to have fun all the time and like kick a balloon around. I want to do something meaningful, but that I enjoy, that I can get paid for because I'm providing value, and do that from 20 until 65 and beyond. I don't want to retire. I want a job I love enough that I do it till you drag me out of there in a box.
Right.
Like that's life. Why would you not want to live a life that way? And maybe there's answers, whatever, but for me, that's the only way. But I just haven't found it exactly yet.
Yeah, and I think it's living life all the way through the whole process, And like it's funny because I've had this discussion a couple times over the last 2 weeks with customers that like it's now becoming like I'm seeing things so much differently now, especially with having my daughter, and she just turned 1, and so we got 2 kids, and like like these kids are growing, and it's like holy shit, like life is flying right now. And
yeah,
but I look back at my 20s, and for Sarah and I, like those were the like we had a freaking blast. Like we were traveling, we were working our asses off. Sarah had multiple jobs. I had my one job, but I was working a ton of hours. I was traveling all over the state, like just pouring ourselves into work, but then also just like freaking Friday night comes and it's like we were tearing it up Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday at Bills games, dragging ourselves to work on Monday. And like those memories are just unbelievable. But like the moves that we made in our 20s, and like anybody that's listening to this that is getting out of high school or graduating from college, it's like you have got to take advantage of those years that you're from in your 20s, whatever point you start in your working life. Like, give it hell, give it everything you've got, because you can make up so much ground. And companies and businesses, like, they're going to see, hey, I got this young person here that doesn't have, maybe is married but doesn't have kids, or maybe not married. They'll travel, they'll work extra hours. Like, you can elevate yourself quickly in an organization if you are willing to put the work in. And then you can set yourself up, knock on wood, you can set yourself up into your 30s and settling down and having kids, and the rest of your life you can set up really, really nicely if you do it when you have the chance. But it's like, if I didn't do the stuff I did when I did, I can't go on hunting trips now. I can't travel across the country to go on a ski trip and go floating for a freaking 3-day window with no cell service. I can't do that right now. Not with my wife and kids. Like, I love them too much and want to be here too much,
Yeah. That's first of all, where were you when I was 18? That would have been nice.
I was drunk and probably upside down on the floor at Sonny's is where I was. Yeah.
Fair enough. I was close behind you. But yeah, I really, really like the way you put it. I haven't heard it put quite that way before. But you hit on both things. Like, you were living, you were enjoying things, but you're also working hard to get ahead to kind of set that up. And then where I think we have to go next with that is to go back to Eric Weinstein. He's made some point a couple times in his podcast about what a lot of millennials, I think, or younger generations like me who aren't starting families, and how much of that fullness of life we're missing out on. And I, think I will someday, if your call to action to the ladies out there a little bit ago takes,
I don't think we have a single woman that listens to this podcast.
Well, you never know, Bill. It's never too late to dream.
All it takes is one there, sir.
So you're telling me there's a chance.
That's right.
But yeah, I think there's something so deep there too that that's not one or the other. It's kind of follow them while you got them, do them while you can. But I'm sure you could speak to this much better than I can, and maybe it ties back to the hunting thing with Bill. Dan, I saw a video him out there on your lap, I think, looking at turkeys, right?
Yeah,
and that's just got to be a different kind of incredible, right?
It was, yeah. I didn't want to be like over the top, but it was unbelievable. I that I've been wanting. So like when we were talking earlier, like you're asking me about like family and tradition and like what this means, and like Billy, like we sat there, whether this stuff like absorbs into you or not, when he's a newborn, you're passing time sitting there watching YouTube and watching hunting videos. And it's now like we're sitting there watching TV, or I tell him hunting stories every night. Like we go to bed, I tell him a hunting story, and now he's telling me hunting stories that he's just making up. It's hilarious. And he's going to be 3 years old in July. And I asked him on Friday night, I'm like, you want to go turkey hunting on Sunday? He's like, yeah, let's go turkey hunting. I'm like, okay.
Nice.
So, it's nap time. Kate goes down for a nap, 9:30, 10 o'clock. I'm like, all right, Bill, this is our chance. We're going to go. So we pack up and we go, and I'm dressing him up, and it's like, it's all such a surreal thing. Cause that first will never happen again. Like that's an experience I'll never forget. And we go out there and, it's a process, like I'm carrying 2 folding chairs, the ground blind, which is a big folding pop-up tent, essentially, that's camouflage.
Not to be confused with a tree blind. Got it.
Different thing. It's on the ground, not in the tree. And, and he's got his little backpack on, his little Mickey Mouse Roadster backpack with his little pop gun that he's got. That's a little wooden gun that's got a little plug on the end that you pump it and it pops. And he's got his gun. He's going hunting, and we go out there and we sit down in the chair, and he's got the turkey call and I've got my turkey call, and we're making all this racket and noise. And I'm like, okay, we got to be quiet. So I give him snacks, and he's eating a pepper. And if you watch the video, you've seen it. He's sitting there eating a pepper. I posted the one on Facebook, and he's eating. I'm like, oh my God, I hear a turkey yelping, which is like, yelp, 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 yelp. And I'm like, that's a real turkey. It's right here. I unzip the window. I look out, and there's this turkeys coming right into the decoy. I'm like, you got to be kidding. We've been here for 10 minutes, Dan. 10 minutes. We walk across an open field, 10 minutes, hit the call. Wow. And Billy was making noise with the call. But just like the experience of that, and like seeing that, like, oh my God, in his eyes, it's insane. And like, it's like hitting me and my daughter's birthday, 1-year-old, and she's saying daddy, she's saying mommy, like she's got a personality, and it's just like, wow. Like, so that's where over this last year, like things have really, Kate was born peak of the pandemic when we were all told it was going to be freaking DEFCON 5 May 8th last year. And she came into this world in that craziness, and she's been the rock for us because that's our priority. And like, you couldn't get dragged down with everything because she needed us, you know. And that's like, you haven't been through it, but any parent that's out there, like when you finally see that kid and you hold him and it's like, this is it. It's like, this came out of me and out of my wife. It's like, holy shit. And they're like, they're breathing, they're looking at you, and they need you. And it's like, oh my God, you know? So like, it's life coming in full circle. And then I don't know, man. It's a wild thing. Awesome. It is. And I hope you get to experience that someday. You will. Some lovely lady will help you produce that. You guys will breed them, and it'll all happen.
And we can't wait to see what's wrong with her psychologically that she ends up here. But
she'll prove you wrong. That's what she'll do. He or she. That's what she will. But it's
he or she.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know what it's going to be yet. You know, we're really getting ahead of ourselves and what you're.
Oh, the child.
Yeah, the child. Yes.
Oh, okay, I thought you meant the woman that comes into my life, and then you change it to he or she.
No. I'm talking about your unborn child with the woman you haven't met yet. But we're really getting.
Got it.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome when it happens. I'm telling you, you're going to love it.
Yeah, no, it is.
But it goes back to that, you know, to the purpose and the drive and the reasoning, you know. So.
Yeah, well, I think that's another guy that we talked about earlier to tie back in, Jordan Peterson there, and he's got his controversies that I think are unfortunate, a little overblown, but main thing he talks about kind of is having responsibility gives you purpose, and kids are one way to do that. One major, I don't have to point that out, but yeah, responsibility. What can you do? And you talked about like in your community, like let's bring that vision down. That's always been my problem is I've told people before, like if I got to be the CEO of this bank, it wouldn't be enough. If I got to be an astronaut that went to Mars, it wouldn't be enough. I'd always want to do other stuff. And it's like, well, that's a problem. But if you're raising your kid the best way you can, if you're doing the best things you can in the sphere you have, what could mean more than that? Like you can't do more than that.
Right.
That's, you know, so I got to get there.
Yeah. It's just finding your thing, you know, whether it's, you know, you're passionate about sports, you know, you played sports competitively, whether it's coaching and pouring that into kids or pouring that into somebody that needs that guidance, you know. And like with me, with what I've gotten so passionate about with deer habitat and conservation and getting people into this hobby of hunting and providing, you know, like that's, I can see it when I watch my friend kill a deer and help him process that, and he's going to take it home and feed his family. Like that's fulfilling. Like I didn't need to pull the trigger. I already got mine. And now I see him providing, and it's like just, it's like goes back to this perpetual thing. Like you teach a man to fish, he'll eat forever. You give him a fish, he'll whatever that saying is, you know, it's now, yeah, that's it. Yeah. Jeff now is proficient. He can go. I don't have to, like, I've taught him all he needed to know. Not that he needed to learn from me, but just that little bit of guidance about how to make that, how to close that deal. He can do it now. He doesn't need me.
That's cool.
And that's like a really cool feeling. And I'm sure that's the same way all of our coaches felt growing up. You know, they saw that thing in you and they pushed you, or, you know, they helped you perfect that pitch or how to block that ground ball when it's coming at you. Like, I'm sure it's that same thing. You know, why the hell? Think about coaching. Like, I get done with these guys, like even like Donnie, you know, like he was coaching all those sports there. And it's like, where do you get the energy for that? You know, those kids they're wide open. They need you, but I'm sure it's probably that fulfillment that you get from that. Like I don't know if you ever met Rob Crowley, one of Donnie's buddies from here, but like Rob's the same thing. I mean, he's got 2 kids, wife, he coaches, very good coach. And he is like extremely engaged with his kids. And like, I would love to discuss that with him. Like, what's that like? Because that's got to be wild. Like pouring into those kids and watching them develop into young men and going off and doing something and knowing you had an impact. Like that's a big deal.
Yeah. I mean, we talk about how much we've gained from it that we take for the rest of our lives. And that's, with the guest Angelo that I had talked about that. It's so powerful. So to be able to unlock that for people and help them learn those lessons, that's, I'm right there with you. That's amazing. It's an amazing thing to give to the world.
Angelo sounded like a cool dude too. So did he get there right around the same time you did? You were like 08, 09. Is that right?
Yeah. So I went to Fredonia 09 because I spent a year at RIT and I got shellacked there for a season.
Yeah.
And I was miserable for a few reasons there. So I transferred to Fredonia 09. He got there 08 as a freshman. So we started the same year. And he kind of had an up and down experience there too. And I think well, he didn't have the career he probably should have had or felt like he should have had maybe. And I think that hardship and grinding through that probably taught him a lot of what he's teaching people now today, because it didn't work out great and he had to grind his way through that.
Yeah.
But he's a great freaking guy.
Yeah, he sounds awesome. And he sounds a lot like Donnie, a lot like Rob Crowley, that are out there coaching kids and, trying to make a difference. And that, if we want to kind of round this whole thing out, like that's where, like, you doing what you're doing with the podcast, you're trying to make a difference not only for you, but for other people in your sphere and people that are listening. Like, I think at the end of the day, us podcasters that are just, little guys that aren't making tons of money and we don't have sponsors and stuff, like, we're doing this to scratch our itch, but we're also doing this to try to just, if it's just that one person that we can make a difference with that week, like that is why we do it. And shit, where was I going? God darn it. It's too late.
Coaching. Giving to the world. Responsibility.
Yeah. God.
Helping.
And
hardship, pushing through when it's not the way you thought.
Just do it.
I got a photographic memory. I'll just read the whole conversation back to you if you want.
Damn it.
Just kidding, I don't have that.
I'm going to have to edit this out. I'm just embarrassing myself and the whole everything. It's terrible.
Well, we can do that. That's the magic of it.
I know. No, but it's just I think it's taking that adversity that you learn from and trying to help impact the people. Oh, I know. I got it. Is that
yes.
I'm very encouraged by, there's a lot of people that are pouring themselves into doing this sort of stuff, but they're also trying to make a difference on the ground and actually out doing stuff. And I'm growing to the point in everything that I'm sick and tired of people talking about doing things, and I want to see action, so I'm trying to hold myself to that. Oh, I got a quote. I'm got to find it.
Okay, I see the pages flipping.
Okay. This has been very impactful to me. How people act is significantly more telling than what people say they think about things.
Yeah.
So how people act is significantly more telling than what people say they think about things. So basically saying how you act when people aren't watching. We've all heard that before. People can just chatter all the time and say how great they are. Or I'm doing this, or this is how I feel about that, or you should. It's like, God, like, so many of those people are not doing what they say they believe. And
or they're talking about other people and judging, criticizing what other people are doing. Yeah.
So,
and I mean, that's what to put my bow on that. So much of this is about not only finding our own things, and that's what people are doing, but building some sense of community, some sense of belonging around that. So like this hunting thing you've talked about, you figure that's kind of touchy-feely for hunters, but no, like, that's what you guys are doing, and it's awesome.
Yeah.
And then it just pick your avenue when people are doing what they're into and other people are connecting with them on that. We're unlocking some real good stuff.
Yeah. And I think that's, surround yourself with people that are that way. If you've got people that are negative and they are out there just chattering about stuff and not doing anything, it's like, you gotta look yourself in the mirror every morning and say that you're doing what you can do to make things better around you. So don't let all of us have it. We all have people around us that are the first ones to complain about stuff. They're the first ones to say I'm out of shape or whatever. But it's like, well, what are you doing about it? Are you getting up at 4:30 in the morning to go to the gym? Are you going to go for a run after work? It's like, what are you doing? Because I don't want to hear it. If you feel like shit, or you're not happy with the way you look, it's like, you can change that. that's all stuff that you have control over, and blaming other people for things is just, I got no time for it, you know? And that's where I
Yeah.
find my motivation in a lot of these people that are, you know, that are just doing stuff. You know, it's like, wow, look at that guy. Like he's running every day. He's after it, you know? So
Yeah. And it
that's a huge
starts with
thing.
just taking one step. I mean, that's what I've learned, because people sometimes, like I tell my story, right? I moved to Denver. I did stand up. Now I'm doing a podcast. And from a distance, people are like, wow, you do so much. It's like, no, man, I've been alive 30 years. I did one thing in 2015, one thing, you know, and it feels like nothing to me. But the times that I have taken that step have been so few, and they've still led to something that from the outside seems like a lot. And in those moments, to me, is a lot. So for anyone, whatever your thing is, your challenge is, you just start by taking one little baby step, and then that enables you to take the next one. And before you know it, and it's less important, but other people will just start being like, wow, look at all that you're doing. And it all starts with that, like you said, action. You can't just keep talking about it, but it doesn't have to feel like a big thing, just a baby step. Just what's the next baby step?
Yep. And I am encouraged by, you know, and in the same sentiment, I'm encouraged by the people that are stepping up and doing those things. And I think we have a good future ahead of us, outside of all the noise, that there are a lot of people that are of our generation that are going to step up, the you know, the Angelos of the world, that are the future leaders and are the leaders of the kids that are teaching the kids, you know, like it just, we're making a difference. So we gotta, you know, not get dragged down by all the BS and continue to focus on making the future better for the next generation.
Agreed.
For everything to come, you know.
Harness good, block bad. Little Happy Gilmore to take us home.
It's good, block bad. Yeah. Can I end this with a Coach Paulson story? Did you ever hear the long face story?
Bill, that was like how I knew you until I met you.
Oh, God darn it. I didn't want you to know that story.
I'm sorry. Well, the people don't.
So we're on a long road trip, and I want to say it was a road trip that Donnie, we went to, I think it was Oneonta and New Paltz, maybe, all the way on the east side of New York. And road trips are fun. And Donnie, I think that was the trip that Donnie took the ground ball off his nose, and he was nice. all busted up. So on the ride home, you know, it was pretty cool because we got an extra pizza because Donnie was wounded. So we had an extra pizza, it was all right. So it's like super late. It's got to be like after midnight. The bars were still open. I know that much because we all got off the bus and went to the bars. But we're pulling onto campus, and you know, Pallison's got his awful jokes, you know, and he stands up, and he's up in the front of the bus, and he stands up and he grabs the microphone, and he's just like telling, I don't remember what the joke was, but the punchline's like, it was about a horse, and it was like, Harvey, why the long face? And I'm like, and everybody just dies laughing. And it's like, you just called me a horse. And I like, look at it. I know I got a long face, small ears, big nose. I know you know, you might as well just call me a horse. I am what I am.
Yeah.
But
that's right.
that was, I wish I remembered the actual story, but I was so stunned or the actual joke, but I was so stunned.
Oh, I know it because I heard it 100 times in my career.
Oh, well, give it to me.
So you're I want people to picture this. Like, you're gone. You've transferred out. It's now literally, which I don't like, but I mean it, years later. And the same coach is up there with a whole different group of guys telling the same joke with you as the punchline, and nobody knows who you are. And it's like, I don't know, that might make it funnier or worse. I don't know what.
It's fantastic.
So he would just get on the mic, same thing. We're pulling back in late at night, 6 years later, and he just goes, check, testing. Billy Harvey walks into a bar. Bartender says, why the long face? That's it. That's the whole joke. It's supposed to be a horse.
So you're
horse
serious?
Walks into a bar.
He did that after the fact?
Bill, I swear to God, I heard that joke at least 3 to 5 times. Well, I guess at least 3 times in my career, probably more.
I'm gonna go after him for slander and abuse, you know, mental abuse.
Like yeah, that is the extent of the joke. Number one, like, how, is that worth repeating? Number two, the guy has been gone.
A kid who he ruined, you know, and like caused caused Donnie Kirsch to almost fail out that semester because we just turned to partying after I got cut, and Donnie had a rough couple semesters. My mother-in-law, so I married Donnie's sister. For anybody who, I mean, people probably don't know, but we're talking about Donnie.
Sure.
I ended up marrying Donnie's sister, and my mother-in-law and my mother both wrote letters to the AD of Fredonia about me getting cut because my mom was upset because I got cut and I shouldn't have been cut, and my feelings were upset. So my mom wrote that letter. And then Audrey, my mother-in-law, and I learned about all this after Sarah and I were together, and it was like this surreal thing because now I'm part of the family. My mother-in-law wrote a letter to the athletic director how upset she was about how she separated me and Donnie had an awful, semester academically, and he didn't play well or whatever. And maybe he did play okay, but like the tie, like it's
wow.
you can't make this stuff up,
No, that's I never knew that last part of it about the scars that caused and the mothers
scars,
going to bat. Wow. That's deep.
But
man.
you know
Stuff
what?
deep.
Look at what it did. If I would have stayed at Fredonia, Coach P, if he ever listens to this, he did me a huge solid because he got me out of there and away from bad influences of Donnie Kirsch and Rob Herman, and I was able to focus on, focus
don't
on
want
my
to be around those
academics.
guys.
No, definitely not. And I hope they get a laugh out of that. But I was more focused on partying than I was until I got out of there, and then I hunkered down in athletics and education, and I was getting 4.0s and Dean's List, and I didn't achieve any of that at Fredonia. I've had too many of my friends around from high school, and there's just a lot of fun to be had. So,
yeah, you're not the first with that problem, sir.
He did me a solid. So thank you, Coach P, for getting me out of that situation. Maybe that's why he did it. Maybe he knew.
Oh yeah,
all his
like
wisdom.
we said, he's got the foresight, man.
He does.
It's
The
a
hammer.
mature way to look at it,
The
Bill.
Suniac hammer. All right, I'm turning into a pumpkin here. It's been a 2-hour convo. It was a great chat with you.
This has been great.
And
I'm going to be wired now. I'm not going to be able to sleep. Thanks for this, but I love this, man. I'm fired up, and I hope I can take you up on that offer. I'll go out with you sometime.
Yeah, I'd love to, and sincerely mean that. And anybody that's listening that is interested in checking our stuff out, we would love to help more people understand what we do, and also, if they're interested in getting into it, just seeing what it's like. We're all open arms for that. So, and you keep doing what you're doing too. I love what you're all about and what you're doing. And I knew that as soon as I saw Dan Greco had a podcast, I was like, that's going to be something I need to listen to. So it's good stuff, buddy.
I'm flattered, man. Thank you. And no, keep doing yours. Build that community up. It's a good thing. I've learned.
Yeah. Amen, Daniel.
Yeah.
Okay.
Amen.
I'm going to go to sleep. I got a turkey to go listen to in the morning.
All right. Hold on. Don't close the browser yet. You can stop recording, but let me walk you through the end of this.
Stop.